lovers of lore, thank you for joining me for the 5th installment of the Wilds of Eldraine story. This part of the story starts with Kellen and Ruby. They've arrived outside of Castle Ardenvale, the current home of the witch Ariette. Hilda had outfitted them with stout ponies and even crafted a giant ice sword at Ruby's request. And Ruby found every excuse to work that sword into any conversation. There was a stillness about Ardenvale. They encountered no one on their journey to the castle's front entrance. Inside was a different story. Somehow, the sleeping castle knights were able to move and they were standing guard. Kellen didn't want to risk fighting and hurting them, so luckily, they still had a potion of frogification that Troyan had given them as a parting gift. They bounded well over the assembled knights after transforming into frogs and landed inside the castle. The wicked slumber was thick here. They could actually see it trailing back towards its source. That must be where Ariette was. So they sped off in hunt of the witch. But instead, they found Rowan Kenrith with curse clouds swirling around her. Kellen surged forwards. "Rowan, watch out for the curse!" He started to sputter, realizing that he had just addressed royalty like a simple farmhand. "Lady Kenrith?" he started. Rowan's eyes narrowed. "Why are you here? Who are you people?" "We're here for the same reason as you, to defeat Ariette. You two need to leave." "But we can help you." "You can help from the outside," Rowan tossed back. Kellen felt confused, and he dropped his head in disappointment. And that's when he noticed Rowan's notes. She was trying to infect people with the wicked slumber. Too late, he realized the danger. Rowan summoned lightning into her fists. The next thing Kellen knew, he was spluttering awake, somehow very wet. Ruby stood over him with a bucket. Apparently, Rowan had knocked them both out. Ruby had awoken first and saw Rowan trying to work dream magic on Kellen. But then something important must have happened because Rowan abruptly left. So Ruby had retrieved her ice sword and tried to wake Kellen. Nothing had worked but that bucket of water. The distraction turned out to be Will Kenrith. That's what drew Rowan away. Will's knights were storming the castle. They were met by Ariette's sleeper knights. Rowan knew Ashiok was gone, so Ariette had no one else on which to rely, and she didn't know military tactics, so she was going to be outmaneuvered by Will. To make things worse, Eldraine was with them. She was at the head of Will's troops, leading them. Rowan was enraged that she would endanger the innocent sleeping knights, so she sent lightning blasting into the ground right in front of Eldraine. "Leave! Return to my weak, useless brother." Eldraine's eyes widened. What was the High King's sister doing here? At that point, Will himself rode into the castle. Just seeing him made Rowan hate herself. The pain in his voice, seeing his sister aligned with an evil witch, was evident when he spoke. "Rowan, what have you done?" "I'm trying to save Eldraine." "This is pure madness, sister. Come home. It's not too late." Rowan charged at Will, her blade cutting down knights she once called friends. "Eldraine is ruined. Our parents are gone. There is no home for me." Will met every slash of her blade with his ice sword, hoping Rowan would expend her rage and come to her senses. She didn't, so he fused her feet to the floor with ice. His face was full of regret. "I failed you." Rowan's bubble of rage was pierced by Will's words, but she was distracted by Ruby and Kellen rushing into the room and charging at Ariette. Will looked at Rowan. "You want to save that witch?" Rowan shot back, "She's our aunt. With her magic, we can save Eldraine." Will's face twisted in disgust. "What have you become?" Rowan's rage boiled over. No one seemed to understand. She poured her anger into lightning. She sent wave after wave of it, intending to obliterate Will and all of his knights. A fitting price for betraying her. When she finally had spent her fury and the dust cleared, a giant wall of ice stood in her path. It had taken everything she could throw at it. Will dismissed it with a gesture. "Rowan," he began, but she lunged at him with her sword. The blade was grabbed mid-air by a wooden arm. It was Eldraine. "Your brother is High King. You will not raise your blade against him." The air in the room shifted into darkness for a moment as Ashiok abruptly appeared. The sleeper knights fought with renewed vigor. Also, Ashiok's presence allowed Ariette the freedom to enchant more slumberers. One by one, Will's knights started to fall asleep and turn on their comrades. Rowan used her magic to drive off Eldraine, but not before Eldraine punched her square in the face. Kellen at this point is attacking Ashiok, but isn't able to land a blow. But it does distract Ashiok enough that Will Kenrith is able to blast her with ice magic. He pretended that he was aiming it at Rowan, but shifted at the last second. So the ice blast took Ashiok full in the chest. A giant scream erupted, and then Ashiok was gone. During all this, Ruby's managed to reach Ariette and has her frostblade to the witch's neck. Ariette spoke to Rowan through the wicked slumber. "Go, we will meet again. These young whelps won't kill me. They don't have the nerve." Rowan focused her power into a mighty blast, but instead of aiming it at the knights, she released it into the ground instead, sending her flying into the air. Ariette surrendered, and her troops laid down their arms. High King Kenrith, after this victory, congratulated Kellen and Ruby on their bravery and tells them they're always welcome in his court. Kellen took Ariette's crystal apple as a trophy of her defeat back to Lord Talion in his realm. But when Talion tried to tell him of his father, Kellen told Talion he didn't want to hear about his father from him. He was going to go back to his home village and let his mother tell him instead. So Kellen went back to his home of Oranshire, and his mother gave him a magical coat. Turns out she was once a witch's apprentice for 5 years. Kellen's mom then told him his dad's name was Oko, and he was an otherworldly fae she met picking nightshade. They dated and had Kellen. Oko tried to get her to run away with him, but she refused. They spent the entire night talking about Oko. After going to bed, Kellen couldn't sleep, so he went for a walk with his sheepdog Hex. Hex smelled something and dashed off. And when Kellen caught up, he saw some kind of wondrous portal. Did this maybe lead to where his dad was? No harm in checking it out. "Stay here, Hex. I'll be right back." With a giant grin, Kellen dashed into the portal. Ariette's prison was cold and lonely, but she wasn't planning on staying long. And she was right as Ashiok's presence appeared in her cell. "Rowan is not ready. I'm going to set you up with a new kingdom far from here." Ariette didn't know that Ashiok was taking her to another world, so she said, "Anywhere but this jail cell is fine by me." When the jailers arrived in the morning, her cell was mysteriously empty. All right, my friends, that ends the final installment of the Wilds of Eldraine story. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you like what we're doing here, you can support us by joining the channel membership or the Patreon. Big shout out to the channel's members and patrons. You guys rule. Thanks for supporting this channel. Now, go enjoy some more lore on this channel because, as I always say, lore is life.